Good morning. Those are kind, very kind words, which I appreciate. And I am privileged to be here this morning to share with you our story about Reid Park. Reid Park is one of Reid Park is one of Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools' pre-K through 8 campuses, which is new this year. So we've learned a lot of lessons and would like to begin our story with a quote by Frank McCourt, who really talks about the fact that when you really want to be a person, but you don't know how to be that person, it's really difficult because you start as a person, but aren't sure who that person is. And for us, that has been a challenge with our children and our families. And what we've learned is that our families have great strengths, but life has not really provided them the opportunity to know or to use those strengths. And when you really want to be something, it's very difficult when you don't know how to be it. So I'd like you to imagine with me this morning that you are one of our 9-year-old children, a Reid Park student who really wants to learn. You and your mama are walking to school this morning because you've missed the school bus. This is the 15th time just this month that you've been tardy and late for school, which means that you have not had advantage of your reading and math instructional blocks. You also have an empty, gnawing feel in your stomach because you missed the school breakfast again, and there wasn't much food at home. As you walk into the school office, you hear kids begin to talk about you, and they're staring at you. And your mama apologizes to the school secretaries again that you're late, that you've missed the school bus. And as she does that, she leans down and says to you, "I won't be here. I won't be at home when you come home tonight from school." All of a sudden, you wish you were back home with your grandma who lives with you. But you know that your mama is trying, and you want to try also. So as you watch her leave the school to catch a bus up at the Amy James Rec Center to hopefully find a job that day, you think to yourself, "I hope that's going to happen. I hope Mama will come home with a smile on her face." But in reality, you know that probably isn't going to happen. It's probably really not going to be reality. And so you think of your grandma who says to you every day, "You've got to have hope. You have got to learn." But what does that mean? You really don't know what that means anymore. Sleepless nights amidst gunshot wounds and gunshot and sirens make it really difficult to concentrate the next day. You really are tired, but you really want to learn, so you start your path down to the classroom. And as you open the door, inside you say to yourself, "I have got to learn today. Everybody tells me that. But how am I going to do that?" Most of our children really want to learn. And Nakia and her mama are just one child and one family. But there are thousands of Nakias and her families across our community and across Charlotte. And one of the greatest lessons that we have learned, because we've learned a lot of lessons from our families and children at Reid Park, is that every child really does want to learn. And every family and every child wants their child to succeed, because that's what life is about. But life circumstances really impact and inform our learning. And one of the most significant of those is poverty. Which leads us to a quote by Frank McCourt, who tells us, "Stock your mind, stock your mind. You may be poor and your shoes may be broken, but your mind is a palace." We've learned that palace for our children, and we've asked that question to ourselves 1,000 times as we've progressed through this journey. What do we need to do to help those obstacles disappear or be lessened for our children? As we began our work, we looked really at 5 core, what we call factors, One of them was listen. So often we go in to do great work in our schools, in our community, but we don't really listen to the people that we're serving. So we asked our children, what is your learning environment like? We asked our parents, what do you think the learning environment is like? We asked our teachers. And what we found was that often that vision was very far apart. Yet the reality sets in, and we knew we had to pay attention to data. What did the data really tell us? How many of our children were succeeding? How many of them were struggling? Why were they struggling? And what did the data tell us about the work that we had to do? And then we thought about partners. Who would be our partners? Who would be really willing to step outside of the box and do things differently? Who would really be able to, with us, build trust, not only amongst themselves, but with our families? And then we thought about outcomes, listening to Stephen Covey, who says, begin with the end in mind. We really wanted to know what we would measure, because measuring what we do will tell us if we're succeeding or we're not succeeding, if we need to change something or we don't need to change it. What does that mean? And then sustainability. We are really good in Charlotte about starting things. We start new programs and other new programs, and we put money into them and more money into them. And then what do we have? We've had the Blueprint for Children, the Children's Services Network, the Core Values for Children, the High School Challenge. But we asked ourselves, which of those are left? There are none of them left today. So sustainability became for us a very clear goal. So we listened to C.S. Lewis, who tells us that the modern educator really has to not cut down jungles, but irrigate deserts. What did that mean to us? We knew that our families and our children had strengths, but how could we really tap into those strengths? So we studied all kinds of models and all kinds of processes. And we determined as a team that we would use two basic frameworks. One is called a process of STRIVE. STRIVE is a process that was first initially used in Cincinnati in northern Kentucky. And what it really does is focus on collective impact. If we have all these partners, what are we going to do together? What are we really going to impact? And what outcomes can we agree upon? It also speaks clearly to aligning of services. We have many times in Charlotte coordinated, connected our services, but have we truly aligned them so that we're building on the strengths of each of those pieces? And so that's what we concentrated on. And then last of all, the sustainability piece. How would we build a civic infrastructure that would really help us maintain those outcomes and sustain them? And then we looked at system of care, which is another process that we're using. It is family-based, strength-based, paying close attention to the cultural competencies that we need to work with all of our families and children. We knew that each of them had to have a plan, and because every child returns to a family, that definition of family may vary, but in the end, every one of our children will return to a family. So we wanted something that focused on family case management, because often we focused our attention on a child, and yet we know that that family is an important part of that child. So we focused continually on family case management. So we thought to ourselves, what agencies could we have that would really be willing to come together with us and step outside of the box, because different, we knew, was the answer we were seeking. We have been fortunate to have 6 agencies who have stepped forward, who are really trying and have truly done things very differently. Not an easy task when you've been used to doing things as you have for years upon end. So we have a Child's Place who serves our homeless children. We have Communities and Schools that is now doing a family case management piece for us. the Charlotte Housing Authority, who is also joining us in family case management. We have the community divisions of the Department of Social Services, who is going to be willing to place a worker at the school who can help our families with food stamps and Medicaid and questions. Trying to navigate the Department of Social Services is sometimes a huge challenge. We also have Melange Health Solutions, who really provide our mental health testing and mental health services, because many of our families have undiagnosed mental health issues. And finally, we have Thompson Child and Family Focus that provides our early childhood services and additional mental health services and in-school behavior, just concentration for our children and families that need in-school patterns of learning. We also have a multitude of support services that we're very grateful for. The public library has just been incredible in providing us with literacy experiences for our children and families. Some of our children came not even knowing how to hold a book, which is hard to understand and believe in a community of our means. But we also have Crisis Assistance Ministry, the YWCA, the YMCA, Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools Parent University, and of course our faith community. One of the huge lessons that we learned was, again, how do we measure what we're doing? Because that was critical for us. And who would do that measurement and evaluation for us? UNCC's Department of Psychology is providing faculty that is doing this measurement for us. They are very keen on doing these kinds of initiatives and have understood and given us outcomes that we know we can measure, that we can use then in reality to change what we're doing if we need to, or strengthen what we know is already working. When you have two huge entities like the Board of Education and the Board of County Commissioners, it's a challenge to bring them together. But we're grateful because we've been able to do that. And together they have really formed a lot of support for us. We are fortunate most of all to have a principal in Mary Sturge and a zone superintendent, Tyler Ream, who have really, truly been willing to step outside of the box with us. Mary believes in every child and every family, and that makes a huge difference in what we're doing together. So how do we serve our students? Anyone can make a referral. A student can be referred by a staff member, one of our team members, a community member or a neighbor that's concerned about a child in their neighborhood, or any one of the agencies. That initial referral goes to our internal support team that is at Reid Park. That team, then, if they feel they cannot meet the needs of that child and family, refer it to our response to instruction or system of care team, which is made up of all 6 of those agencies. Those agencies then decide who will serve that family as the main provider. And if indeed they need other supportive services, then they go to our surrounding support services that I've mentioned. We also, in trying to build the civic infrastructure, which Strive calls us to do, have a community leadership team. And we would love to have any one of you be a part of that team. That's how we hope to get the sustainability. That's how we hope to be able to sustain the work and the learnings that we have already discovered. The Council for Children's Larry King Center has been critical to our planning. They have managed our planning process. They have researched pieces for us so that we know we're using validated methods and processes. We have the research behind us that tells us what we're doing has already been done somewhere, but most importantly, that it's worked and we've been able, and they have been able to sustain it. We will be serving 150 children this year, but we'll be serving more families because not every child has just one family, so to speak. Those children's eligibility were based on attendance, behavior, and certainly the academic portions of their lives and what that means, and we'll be measuring that as well as their behavior issues and mobility. Mobility is critical. Many of our children move from one of those 8 fragile neighborhoods along the West Boulevard corridor to another one, but what we've learned is they don't move far. And as long as we can continue to touch their lives, we will do that. Again, sustainability came to our minds, and we listened closely to the community, and what we heard was that they were very saddened and frustrated by 2 things that impacted their lives within the past 3 years. 2 years ago, the Amy James Rec Center was closed by the county due to budget constraints. And just this past year, the Amy James Pre-K Center was closed due to consolidation and budget restraints by the school system. The family said to us, this rec center was a focus and a bloodline for our community. We don't have them anymore. So our team has worked with the Board of Education and the Board of County Commissioners, and we are so excited because that center is going to be reopened, hopefully by the time school is out, so that we will have it for the summer and they will have it to continue to build hope through that venue in their community. We have 2 other quotes by Margaret Mead and Maya Angelou. And what it tells us is that we can't really tell children what to learn. We can create for them the environments to help them learn. And once they learn and they know, once you know better, you do better. To make those 2 quotes reality, we as a community will really have to step outside of our box of comfort. We know that we're used to doing things certain ways. We're used to believing certain things about our children. But we've learned so much in our journey at Reid Park. And as Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand. And once you understand and believe in the hearts of those children and families, it will change how our environment is. We can't expect families and children to continue to survive in an environment that is changed when we don't change ourselves. So last of all, I'd like you to imagine one more thing. Picture in your mind what hope looks like for Charlotte. It's clearly more than big buildings and bright lights. It is truly in the voices and the eyes of our children. It is truly in the hopes and the dreams of every single family and child that we touch. We have learned that.